Emma. So great to talk to you and welcome all the City Biz viewers. I'm sure they'll enjoy this conversation. Um, I know a lot about you, but I'd like you to tell us a little about what you do with Mormon Women for Ethical Government, how it started, what was the vision, and what's happening in the last year or so or more.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, David, for having me and for the City Biz viewers for watching along. So my name is Emma Petty Addams. I currently live in Omaha, Nebraska, though I have lived on each coast in the past for longer than a decade and have been here for about 10 years. I am one of the co-executive directors of an organization called Mormon Women for Ethical Government. We also call ourselves MWAG is our acronym. It's kind of a mouthful to say all those words all at once. And we started in 2017 as a true grassroots organization. A group of about 5 friends started a Facebook group. They had different political opinions, but were growing in their concern about the political environment and about the polarization and vitriol that was happening. And so they started a Facebook group to talk about it, and they neglected to tell their friends not to invite their other friends. And within a week, there were 1,000. Within 4 weeks, there were 4,000. And then the next little while was spent building something to support this grassroots movement that just grew out of this need for women to get together and to make an impact. We have I can tell you more about our mission if you want, or want to ask more questions about that.
Yeah, go ahead. Tell us a little more, and then I'll ask you some questions. Sure.
So we really have a 2-part mission. The first one is pretty obvious. We advocate for ethical government. We have a selection of issues that we advocate on, and pro-democracy work or protecting democracy is the foundation of all of it. That's the most important one. That's the one we focus on the most, and it's the lens through which we look at all of our work. And then on the other side, we empower women. So we've got these thousands of women across the United States, 49 states, everywhere but South Dakota, and we're still looking for some South Dakota members. And our mission is really focused on them to create programs and opportunities to advocate and skills building that empowers them to engage in the public sphere in whatever level that they choose to. So really the women are our focus, and they are the energy and the lifeblood of our organization.
And would I be correct in assuming that you have women from all different ethnic backgrounds, political backgrounds, different philosophies on government? Or is it mostly women who already agree on everything?
Well, we do not agree on everything. I can say that with absolute definity. In fact, we encourage a variety of women to join. That's one of our hallmarks, is that I think sometimes people are looking for a safe space to discuss politics. I don't know that we're safe, because if you show up to MWAG, you're going to find someone who is going to have a different opinion than you. But I think what we do share is a commitment to seeing each other as fully human and as interesting and as a, and we like to engage in lively conversation, and then we really want to go do stuff together. So we don't just talk about it, we then go and we do stuff. We try to impact policy and make change.
Well, I'm going to be talking to lots of other change leaders. And one thing I'm really curious about is, obviously your mission is a long-term mission. You're not here just for tomorrow or this year. But does the present political environment, the tremendous polarization and tribalism, are you thinking at all short term, because we have this, really divisive election coming up? Does that change anything, or pretty much you just continue as you always do?
So our last kind of 3-year strategic plan, which was 2021 to 2024, was definitely focused on building the infrastructure, messaging, and women power needed to scale our impact in 2024. So I suppose the answer is yes and yes. We both are thinking long-term and continuing that plan, but we had built in kind of looking ahead to election year like this one as something we needed to really participate in. So we've met almost all the goals in that, and there's that first strategic plan. And so we're in the process of actually tweaking the plan as we speak to address the urgency of the election year. And we're really framing this work around 2 priorities: protecting democracy and proclaiming peace. These are always been key values for us, but this is a really important election year, and it provides a high-level framework for everything that we do.
Yeah, well, those are really important values, and everything we want to do in terms of solving our problems is contingent upon a healthy, thriving democracy. So, yeah, that's really great, all the great work you do. And I happen to know a little about you because the Bridge Alliance that I'm co-founder of, And the Fulcrum, which is a project of the Bridge Alliance, has a sister organization called Citizen Connect, citizenconnect.us. And that's built upon the concept of getting more citizens involved. And I believe you're a part of an amplification group there where there's other groups that you're working with to maybe get out of your silo and not just be focused on the important work you do, but the work others are doing as well. Could you tell us a little about that?
Yeah, I mean, that's really been the gift of the past couple of years for us. I think we had to, by necessity, stay very kind of internally focused for those first few years, especially as we were kind of building our organization and building our membership and then building the infrastructure. I mean, we had the members before we had the organization, so you had to kind of build the infrastructure to support a long-term movement. And over the past couple of years, as we really solidified that, it's just been a wonderful gift to engage with the larger bridge building and pro-democracy communities, the Bridge Alliance and Citizen Connect and Fulcrum and all of the organizations that you have worked with have been, I would say, kind of transformative for us. The relationships we've built through those introductions. It's just a group of people who are principled, are thinking carefully about power and how to help it kind of be distributed and used, in the hands of multiple people, which is what we want to do in a democracy. And so it's been just a delight to be engaged with that community, to be welcomed in, and to really learn from it, hopefully contribute in meaningful ways.
Well, I've learned over the years we really are a community, and it's my hope is that more and more Americans know that people like you and organizations like yours are out there because so many people have a negative attitude nowadays. It's all negative, negative. So, thank you for the work you do, and but related to the work you do, if you had a particular story about something that really excited you about an accomplishment, something that, you know, really expresses a positive viewpoint of the work you do in the last year, year and a half, is there any particular story that comes to mind or experience?
Yes, but I have got so many, but so let me think of one that I think will perhaps illustrate, I think, some of the challenges that you just addressed, kind of the negativity and the cynicism and the lack of hope. Someone asked once a couple weeks ago, how do you feel hope? And I said, it's actually really hard not to feel hope with the work I do because of the women that I work with. Every day I'm kind of on the front line to access the stories of women just doing all this stuff that's unheralded, that's never going to make the news, that's, hard to measure because it's measured kind of in relationships and community building. And I think the one thing that I can measure and give an example of is in 2023, we worked with the organization Unify to launch a pilot program called Women Making Peace. And it was an event, and it basically was a combination of in-person and virtual movie screenings of a movie called The Abortion Talks. And believe it or not, this movie is actually not about abortion. I mean, that's the kind of this topic, or that's the subject of it, but really it's about building peace. And it was, created by a husband-wife team named Josh and Sarah Saby. And we did some pilot programs where we hosted screenings in person and then in women's homes. So we, basically zoomed it out to people's homes all over the U.S. And it tells this story of a group of women who came together to discuss this incredibly, divisive issue. They were on opposite sides of the issue, about as far as you can get apart from each other, and heavily involved in the public dialogue around it. And so if you want to talk about political enemies, these women epitomized it. And over 8 years, they met in the basement of a church in Boston, and they grew to love one another. And, I hosted a screening of this in my home, and I had attendees who were absolutely kind of similar. They were on opposite sides of the issue and with starkly different views. And we didn't actually talk about abortion. Instead, we talked about peace building. And what happened with this movie is that each of the attendees managed to see themselves reflected with care and compassion in the movie, and they left with concrete ideas about how to manage conflict. And then we did pre and post surveys, and much to our delight and our expectation, it showed a meaningful impact as it decreased participants' anger and effective polarization. So it was this warm and fuzzy and wonderful thing, but it also had kind of a meaningful impact on how people saw those around them.
Well, that is a wonderful story. And I think it's stories like this that more Americans need to hear. Unfortunately, the media these days they profit by conflict. So we need more stories to share the positive things that we have in common as Americans. And so thank you for sharing that story. I'm just curious about your life a little. Is there any life experiences, something about you as a college student or a high school student or growing up that you think led you to this type of desire to bring people together to find common ground? Or is it just something you discovered late in life? I mean, is there anything about you that you think relates to the movement?
Well, I think there's maybe kind of two things that I think both address both sides of MWIG's mission that were really formative for me. The first is that my family members always referred to me as a peacemaker. I was kind of seen as maybe someone in the home and in the community who would try to create peace. Now, as I've aged, I've recognized that I was doing a lot of peacekeeping and avoiding conflict, perhaps, and not necessarily peacemaking, which is when you see conflict and you walk into it intentionally. So I think my earlier experience with that identity and then recognizing as I gained wisdom that perhaps I was avoiding conflict or maybe sometimes accommodating everyone to keep the peace and has really helped me transform my identity and be more, I think, bold and brave, honestly, about walking into conflict situations. And obviously with my job, I feel like I walk into a conflict situation every day, if not every other hour. So I think having that identity really, really helps a lot. And I think on the other side of it, on the protecting democracy side, from a really early age, my dad in particular instilled in me a deep love of the Constitution, of America, of history. He had a huge library in his office, and I never had to go to the library to check out books. This was before the internet, right? So if I had to write a paper about the Civil War, about World War II, or Churchill or whomever, I would just go down to his office and pick a book or two and use that. And I think that really helped me instill a love of the country. But I realized this patriotism came really easy to me probably because I benefited my family. America's been really good to my family. It's provided religious freedom protections. My church was founded and has grown and thrived in the United States. It couldn't have done anywhere else. And I think of like one story maybe to tell is my grandfather grew up on a farm in Idaho, a dry farm in Idaho, and he went off in the Navy in World War II, and through the GI Bill he went to Stanford Law School after the war, and that was an example of a policy that my family really, really benefited from that built kind of patriotic, really kind of dug in our patriotic roots, but then we all benefited from. But then as I've kind of aged and I've hopefully grown wiser, I think this love of country has been tempered by an understanding that others have had different experiences than than I have, that maybe they haven't had the same experience of America, and maybe policies and issues haven't benefited them as greatly. And so my faith, which kind of intertwines all this together, really gives me this commitment to view each human through the eyes of divine potential and inherent worth. So, if I believe that and I'm committed to Dr. King's beloved community, then I actually have to be an active participant and even a leader in the American experiment. It's not, it's something really important to me. If there are children that are poor and hungry, it's my obligation to work towards policy and to be part of the messy solution. So that I think would be two things that I can describe two of the main reasons why I'm moved and compelled to do the work I do.
Well, I just heard that new term you presented or gave, but fascinating, peacekeeper versus peacemaker. And I think in my experience the last 12 years in doing the work I do, it's sort of part of the problem. The people we need to become more involved and more engaged naturally, they tend to be more reticent and, don't want to get into the conflict. And the people who want to separate us, it tends to be part of their personality. So uh, I think expressing that viewpoint will really be helpful to people to help them realize they can make a difference, which raises my last question. Give some words to people who are listening to this video of what they can do to make a difference, how they can contact you, and how to get involved.
So the first thing I would say is that in an election year, in a presidential election year, be a principled voter. If you leave with nothing else, that's my ask, is as you're looking at your ballot, keep the golden rule in mind. Think about how the people on it and the initiatives and the policies impact your family, of course, and those around you. Think about someone who's different than you and how they might be impacted by it. And make decisions to vote based on not just party lines. Good, moral, ethical, principled people can be found across the political spectrum. And and don't allow those who kind of want to pull you into the battlefield of politics get your vote. Choose those just, regardless of their party. And I can promise that when you do that, you'll actually feel more free. It actually, once you can disentangle your political identity from a party or from an ideology, it opens you up to the world in a way that I think makes us better humans. So it's this wonderful virtuous cycle. So that's I think the first thing I would say. If you want to join MWAY, we would love to have you. If you're a woman, you do not need to be a member of our church, though you have to be okay that most of us are. We aren't faith promoting in that we certainly, we're faith affirming. We talk about our faith. I clearly am talking about how it impacts me, but it's not, we try not to be heavy handed or in any way weaponize it and use it as a kind of a way to kind of force people to do what we want or think the way we do. And within our faith, we have a wide variety of women who think in a wide variety of ways. So we certainly are doing all this work alongside each other. And then, beyond being a principled voter, there's a whole suite of options that we can all do to participate in the political process that do the two things that I'm so passionate about, which is protecting democracy and building peace. It can be as simple as spending 10 minutes sitting down and making a list of those in your family and community who you can encourage to vote. Think about, is it someone that recently moved? Did someone recently move into your neighborhood and they haven't registered yet? Is it a college student or a recently turned 18-year-old? Just spend a couple minutes thinking about it and then reach out to them and see if you can give them information about how to register, offer to help them do so. And then if you really want to level up, go sign up to be a poll worker. It is one of the most amazing ways to participate in the democratic process. And we had an MWAG member, maybe I'll just close with her story. Her name is Trisha Bunderson, and she wrote on Instagram that she had kept hearing about all these problems in the 2020 election and kept thinking somebody should do something about that. She learned about, poll workers being recruited with partisan mindsets, trying to kind of, make the polls a more difficult place to be. And she kept thinking someone should do something. And then she stopped one day and said, today I'm going to be one of those somebodies. And she signed up to be a poll worker. And her words say that, democracy is precious. Resolve today to be somebody who does something about it. And so, be like Trisha. There's thousands of women like Trisha in our organization who are doing this. So take hope from that and emulate that. And that's what we need right now.
Well, you've certainly inspired me, and I'm sure you've inspired our listeners. And it really just, some people might just want to put in 15 minutes a week. Every little thing helps. And it really is very simple. If we just treat others like we would like to be treated, the golden rule, as you say, I think so many of our problems would be solved. So thank you so much. You're an inspiration, and keep up the wonderful work. I very much appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks so much, David.